So we'll see how control of the state Senate shakes out in November. But taking a trip now up to the Adirondacks. New York's high peaks saw record numbers of visitors during the pandemic. And that's not really a huge surprise. Those numbers have been going up for years now. But that's brought some unique challenges to the area, both for residents and business owners. And now the state is looking for solutions. Reporter Alexis Young has that story.
Over 6 million acres and thousands of years, the forever wild Adirondacks were originally home to the Mohawk, Oneida, and Mohican tribes. It then became battlegrounds of old and new worlds, and now the mountains are an attraction for local nature enthusiasts and tourists. The Adirondacks have served many purposes over centuries, and trails were forged to meet those needs. Mountain trails weren't always designed to honor nature or the life it nurtured. Some have degraded the surrounding wilderness, and some of those trail designs are only just now being addressed. For Peter Bauer, Executive Director of environmental group Protect the Adirondacks, he says mountain trail design is critical for conservation.
A lot of the trails that we have were built right after the Civil War. You know, the whole focus was how can we get to the top of the mountain as quickly as possible. So these trails just went straight up the mountainside. And in many places, you know, the trails would wash out because it changed the hydrology of the side of the mountain, because these trails just became stream channels. They became heavily eroded because they were on some steep surfaces.
Bauer and his group work to preserve and protect the Adirondacks, its wildlife, wild lands, and the interests of the surrounding communities. One of their recent initiatives focused on the design and creation of sustainable forest trails that gradually elevate hikers into the peaks of the Adirondacks.
What we found is generally anything over 10% is really hard for soils to adhere to. And these areas are very prone to erosion during rainstorms, rocks become loose, roots become loose, and it creates problems for the long-term management and the long-term maintenance of a trail because they simply wear out quicker with the wear and tear that we see just by natural weathering with rainstorms, spring, fall, and rainstorms really all year round, but then with ice and snow in the winter months.
Outside of their regular conservation work, Bauer says he's now working to get trail crew jobs into the civil service system. That would incentivize skilled trail designers to come to the Adirondacks with competitive salaries and benefits.
We have 2,000 miles of trails across the Forest Preserve that need much greater investment and need a much higher level of maintenance and management than they're currently receiving. One of the things we've advocated for is that our state agency, the Department of Environmental Conservation, has to get back into the trail building business. They've basically been out of the trail building business. Our rangers are so busy doing search and rescue and managing public use that the rangers don't do trail work anymore.
The Adirondacks is known for its babbling brooks, thick vegetation, and awe-inspiring views. The thousands of miles of acreage have acted as a reprieve from both rural and city life. Yet, discussions around overuse, sustainable recreation, and underinvestment have been happening for almost as long. The discussion saw its resurgence during the pandemic, when 12 million people flooded the area between 2020 and 2021. Though patronage isn't quite that high, the impacts of the 12 million can be felt by the flora, the wildlife, and the people of Keene and Keene Valley. Heather Laisher-Coffin has lived in Keene for 13 years, and she's owned East Branch Organics with her husband for many of them. Though she hasn't hiked all 46 peaks just yet, she's no stranger to the high peaks or how busy they can become.
You know, overcrowding on the trails is a problem. I live right next to a very busy trailhead, the Garden Trailhead, and one of the routes was recently closed down in the last few years. So because of that, I'm seeing a lot of erosion and overcrowding on some of the trails that are a little overutilized.
As a business owner, high traffic on trails could sound like a good thing, with the prospect of new faces and new business, especially in a rural part of New York. But business owners and local residents now face a new challenge. With more traffic, a shortage in housing. Owner of the Mountaineer in Keene Valley, near Keene, Chris Wise has had to navigate staffing in a town where the housing market is shrinking, replaced by short-term rentals and vacation spots.
Housing is an issue nationally, obviously on a lot of different levels, but particularly in outdoor destinations and resort towns. Finding young staff that can afford to live in the area and take jobs like the ones we offer as a mountaineer. That is a major issue.
In March, Lake Placid, about 14 miles from Keene, announced a 6-month pause on short-term rentals, including those found on apps like Airbnb and Vrbo. The pause was lifted in September, but discussions around permit regulations continue. Keene hasn't followed in Lake Placid's footsteps, but Leisure Coffin with East Branch Organics feels the same impact of the housing crisis as Chris Wise.
I think the whole area is really likes to cater towards making sure our tourists are happy and comfortable, have lots to do. So I think if we put that kind of same energy that we've put, into welcoming people from other places into housing, then a lot of these problems would probably be fixed, and then people would have a way to stay here, because a lot of times people can't stay.
There are upsides to more interest in the Adirondacks. New York already bills it as a national treasure, tucked away in the state's northern region. The state wants people to come visit. But Basil Segos, commissioner of the State Department of Environmental Conservation, says there has to be a balance between recreation and conservation.
Overuse, in some ways, that's a good problem to have, because it shows that there's a high level of interest in people wanting to get outdoors and experience all that it has to offer. But of course, that kind of use has to be sustainable.
Segos says overcrowding remains a concern in the High Peaks, with more traffic than usual in the last 5 years. The DEC is now working on strategies for mitigation, he says, with the goal of benefiting both visitors and locals in the long term. Segos says if the landscape of the Adirondacks is maintained,
we're going to want to come back to it. And that generates great economic activity for the villages and towns that snake through the landscape and really serve as the backbone of the upstate economy.
A big way they've tried to do that is through a new reservation pilot system for some of the most popular high peaks. Hikers now have to reserve a spot ahead of time to park near those trails. That's helped cut down on jam-packed parking lots and crowded trails, according to DEC Deputy Commissioner Katie Petronas.
We are in the second year right now of our reservation system, pilot reservation system at the Adirondack Mountain Reserve. And when we started that, we really heard from a lot of community members that this was going to be really important and impactful to them. So we went there and we met with the town of Keene, and we met with the public, and we listened. That's
a great system for tourists, says Peter Bauer from Protect the Adirondacks. But it can also be a headache for locals, he says, who live here for the region's beauty, but can't enjoy it on a whim.
It's cut public use in half as far as the number of people who have gone in through the Adirondack Mountain Reserve. The number of people who've used that trailhead, it's dropped from about 30,000 to 15,000. So that's one of the realities of the reservation system.
A lot of this will also grow from state spending on conservation efforts, which was up in last year's budget. The state legislature and Governor Kathy Hochul agreed to $400 million for the state's Environmental Protection Fund, an increase of $100 million. And $8 million of that will go toward a special project to improve safety and address overuse. But experts say maintaining the Adirondacks and its beauty will take work from everyone, from the community to the state and more. With any luck, solutions are just up the trail. In the Adirondacks, for New York Now, Alexis Young.